I think that Shavkat Rakmonov is going to finish Ian Garry this weekend in the third round at UFC 311. And yeah, I wanted to get on here and kind of do a Shavkat Glaze video, boys, because real ones know that I'm the biggest Shavkat Glazer on YouTube. Either way, I've been hearing this ridiculous narrative going around that Shavkat Rakmonov's overrated and that he hasn't fought anybody, and that now that he's fighting a real fighter that is good in the striking like Ian Garry, he's going to get pieced up because he doesn't move his head off the center line and his wrestling's overrated. That's all the narratives going into this weekend. And to be honest with you, I disagree with most of them. I think that people were trying to seem cool and different picking Ian Garry. I think they really know he's not going to win. I mean, dude, no offense to Ian Garry, but you can see that he's on a vegan diet. He looks skinnier and smaller than ever. Look at him versus Shavkat at the stare downs and just in general. Shavkat looks way bigger. That's what you call horse meat versus tofu 101. But either way, man, I'm going to break this down point by point because the stuff people are saying is just ridiculous. One, they have two common opponents, Jeff Neal and Neil Magny. What's the difference? Ian Garry fought Jeff Neal to a split decision. I thought he won clearly, but it was a split decision. It was a decently close fight. He won. He beat Neil Magny by dominant decision. Shavkat Rakmonov finished them both, right? That's the difference. Shavkat Rakmonov is finishing everybody. So people that are calling Shavkat Rakmonov overrated, right? How can you say a guy is overrated whenever he's finishing everybody? That, like, I don't understand. How can you be overrated and still be finishing everybody? If he was overrated, wouldn't he be losing? Wouldn't he be fighting to decision or getting destroyed in every fight? I mean, don't get me wrong. He had a tough fight against Jeff Neal, but at the end of the day, he choked Jeff Neal out on the feet, which is crazy to say. No, who else has submitted Jeff Neal in the UFC? Fair enough. He doesn't have the greatest offensive wrestling. Okay, I can agree to that. He struggled to take Wonderboy down. But Wonderboy, you know, he's got some crafty takedown defense. Either way, people's other criticism of Shavkat is that he doesn't move his head off the center line and that Ian Garry is going to pick him apart because of that. And that is a fair statement, right? Shavkat doesn't move his head off the center line. He walks in a straight line. But what the heck is Ian Garry going to do about it? This guy has absolute pillow hands. Who is Ian Garry KO'd with his hands? Let me know. He got a head kick KO over D-Rod, right? And who else did he KO? Song Kanan? Ian Garry's not known for his knockout power. This dude has Bilal Muhammad level of power. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. So you're telling me Ian Garry is going to be the one to KO or punish Shavkat Rakmonov for not moving his head off the center line? Absolutely not. Just look at the picture on the screen. Look at the absolute physique difference between Ian Garry and Shavkat, and tell me that you cannot tell one eats tofu and one eats horse meat. Shavkat is going to bully Ian Garry in there. And listen, I even as a Shavkat Glazer, I will admit that in the early rounds, maybe round 1 and 2, Ian Garry will have success in the striking. He will look good in the striking. People are going to say, "Oh man, how good is Ian Garry? He's out striking Rakmonov on the feet. Rakmonov's having trouble." But Rakmonov is eventually going to get Ian Garry into the clinch. He's going to bully him to the ground, and he's going to submit him. That's 100% what I think is going to happen. Ian Garry's O has got to go. I don't think there's a single version of Ian Garry that beats Shavkat, but especially not a version on short notice. If Ian Garry was jacked out of his mind, he was bulking up, he actually ate meat, and he was big and strong like Shavkat, maybe he would have a chance even without knockout power. But when you're talking about a guy like Ian Garry, who in my opinion is physically weak, he doesn't have a great chin. I think he's a little chinny. He was dropped by Song Kanan, and he just looks like he has a crappy chin. Like, he just looks like, I don't know, man. Just look at his chin. It looks like it could be cracked very easily. And I'm not trying to be an Ian Garry hater. I'm just simply trying to dispel the narrative that people are running with that, "Oh, dude, Shavkat's overrated, dude. Who's he beat? He beat a 40-year-old wonder boy he can barely take down, dude, and he was getting pieced up by Jeff Neal." Like, bro, who cares what happened in the fight? He finished those guys at the end of the day. You can call him overrated, call him what you want, but at the end of the day, you have to say one thing. He has 18 wins and 18 finishes. Who else in the UFC has that? Not a single fighter in the UFC has 18 wins and 18 finishes. He is one of a kind. Nomad will 100% finish Ian Garry in the third round on Saturday. And yeah, if he doesn't, you know what? It's even better for you guys because I got to come back on here and eat my words. And I will own up to it. If I'm wrong, I'll say, you know what? Ian Garry was a better man. But I just don't see it happening. I don't see a world where Ian Garry beats Shavkat. The only way Ian Garry wins is if he outpoints Shavkat to a 5-round decision. And I just don't see that happening. Shavkat's going to get the finish in 5 rounds. He just will. So I think he's going to take Ian Garry's O. And yeah, man, Ian Garry's good. He's an amazing striker. But I think his grappling's a little overrated due to that MVP fight. People are talking about how Ian Garry has underrated and slick grappling. It's just not true, dude. He doesn't have amazing grappling. MVP is just a fish out of water on the ground, and that showed in the Garry fight. And if you want to talk about Garry striking being this otherworldly amazing thing, why, if his striking is so good, why did he have to take MVP down, you know? Why didn't he just strike with him on the feet and knock him out if he was so much better than MVP? No, he had to resort to grappling because he was getting his butt kicked on the feet by MVP, and that showed. So am I saying that Shavkat is as good as MVP on the feet? No, I'm not. But Shavkat is the more well-rounded fighter. He's got brutal jiu-jitsu. He's got brutal top control. He's got underrated power on the feet. Sure, he's not one-shot TKOing guys, but he's dangerous on the feet. He has pop. He has power. And Shavkat's just a marauder, dude. At the end of the day, people forget, man, Shavkat Rakmonov is an absolute marauder, dude. This dude eats horse meat out of Kyrgyzstan or Kazakhstan, dude, wherever he's from. And Ian Garry's just a peahead, man. He eats tofu and leek stew. And you're telling me this guy's going to come here and beat Shavkat, who's eating horse meat and training his ass off? I mean, there's just no way. I just don't see a world where Ian Garry can do anything to Shavkat in terms of the danger factor. Could Ian Garry pepper him in the face and tag him up a little bit on the feet? Sure. Will he? Probably. But is that enough to win the fight? No. Because at the end of the day, whenever you're fighting Shavkat Rakmonov, you're not fighting to win on points. Somebody's getting finished. And I think it's going to be Ian Garry. And yeah, let me say, respect to Ian Garry. A lot of guys didn't want to step up on short notice, like Usman, like Covington, like a lot. Respect to Buckley, respect to guys like Protest and Ian Garry, willing to step up on short notice, especially Ian Garry. He's a young guy risking his O to fight against Shavkat in a fight that he probably knows he's going to lose. He's also admitted that he's been submitted by Shavkat in training. I don't know if that helps him mentally to build confidence, but he's already been submitted by him in training. Shavkat's the bigger, stronger, more physical guy. Ian Garry doesn't have knockout power. Say what you want about Shavkat not moving his head off the center line, but it's like, I don't think that's going to matter. Ian Garry's not the guy that can like one-punch KO Shavkat. He's not a Usman with one-punch KO knockout power. He's not, he's not a Yoel Romero or a Carlos Protest. Like, if Carlos Protest was fighting Shavkat, I'd be much more worried. I'd be like, oh, crap, man, Shavkat doesn't move his head off the center line. If Protest lands a nasty right hand, Shavkat can go out cold. But with Ian Garry, dude, there's just not much of a danger threat. He's a decision fighter at the end of the day. Sure, he has a couple finishes in the UFC, but we're talking about a guy who took Neil Magny to decision. Couldn't finish him. The same common opponents they have, Shavkat finished him, and Ian Garry didn't. And sure, that's kind of MMA math, and that doesn't always work, but I'm using it to glaze Shavkat, because this is a Shavkat glaze video. And at the end of the day, we're going to find out Saturday night, brother, so tune in. But yeah, in all seriousness, guys, I am high on Shavkat Rakmonov, as you can see. That's why I'm glazing him so hard. I'm sick of the narrative that he's overrated. Sure, there's a few criticisms to make about Shavkat. He doesn't have the best offensive wrestling, 1. He doesn't fight often enough, 2. He fights like once a year, and he doesn't move his head on the center line. That's the 3 things you can say about Shavkat. But this dude is so good, literally finishing every opponent he's ever faced, that people are having to pick and prod like, oh, man, he finished this guy, but he was getting peppered before. He couldn't take down Wonder Boy, or he struggled against Jeff Neal. Like, of course, dude. He's not the best at really anything, but Shavkat, actually, he is the best. He's the best at finishing people. That's what he's the best at, because he's an absolute marauder. And Ian Garry is a decision fighter, and Shavkat's a finisher. So at the end of the day, it's the leek stew versus the horse meat, and I got to go horse meat, man. Like, if I see 2 guys in the room and one of them's eating tofu and the other one's eating horse meat, I'm going to be scared of the guy that's eating horse meat, dude, not tofu. And like I said, man, give Ian Garry his flowers for stepping up on short notice to face arguably the boogeyman of the welterweight division that everybody seems to be calling overrated now for whatever reason. That's exactly why I made this video. This whole overrated narrative is pissing me off. Shavkat Rakmonov is underrated. How about that? Either way, boys, this is my take on the Ian Garry versus Shavkat Rakmonov fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Am I a casual? Can't wait to hear the guys in the comments talking about, dude, you're going to see whenever Ian Garry pieces him up, man. I'm coming back to this video, dude. All right, man. Hit me up on Saturday after UFC 311. If Ian Garry pieces him up, I'll have to eat my words. And yeah, man, I'll just have to look embarrassing in my Grinch suit. Either way, thank you guys for all the support on the channel recently. Like the video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'm bouncing out of here, guys. Peace.